Welcome to Success Story, the most useful podcast in the world. I'm your host, Scott D. Clary. The Success Story podcast is part of the Blue Wire podcast network, as well as the HubSpot podcast network, which has other great podcasts like Socialite, hosted by Steph Taylor. Socialite discusses all things online marketing. Steph Taylor answers all your business marketing questions. She deep dives into the nitty-gritty of online marketing, content marketing, social media marketing, marketing strategy for business owners. If any of these topics resonate with you, you're going to love the show. You'll learn things like how to scale your brand on various different social media platforms, some of the biggest mistakes you can make with your launch of a new product or service, the importance of nurturing and engaging your audience consistently, the importance of having your audience fully understand the problem you're trying to solve and why it's important to solve right now, as well as why growing audiences across all social platforms feels so hard in 2022. You can go listen to Socialite wherever you get your podcasts or at the HubSpot Podcast Network at hubspot.com/podcast network. Today, my guest is Kate Bradley Chernis. She is the founder and CEO of Lately, basically a content marketer's dream tool. It's an AI that learns which words will get you the most engagement and repurposes video, audio, and text into dozens of social posts containing those words. Now, as a former rock and roll DJ, Kate served 20 million listeners as music director and on-air host at Sirius XM. She's also an award-winning radio producer, engineer, and voice talent with 25 years of national broadcast, brand building, sales, and marketing expertise. What she learned in radio about the neuroscience of music helps fuel Lately's artificial intelligence. Now, prior to founding Lately, Kate also owned a marketing agency which got Walmart 130% ROI year over year for 3 years. In addition, Kate's appeared as a guest speaker on hundreds of sales, marketing, and entrepreneurial podcasts and has led presentations for Walmart, National Disability Institute, IRS, United Way Worldwide, SaaStr, South by Southwest, Content Marketing Institute, HubSpot, Harvard, Columbia University, NYU, and others. Now, we spoke about the evolution of content marketing. We spoke about pivoting careers successfully from DJ to marketing mastermind. We spoke about having Gary Vee as one of her major clients. We spoke about how to market for a company like Walmart, achieving those incredible numbers and leveraging AI for marketing, as well as a whole bunch of incredible content marketing lessons.
So I used to be a rock and roll DJ, Scott. My last gig was broadcasting to 20 million listeners a day for XM satellite radio. My radio voice is, it's a little bit warmer than my normal voice. My husband's always like, "Why don't I get the nice voice?" And what I what I learned about the neuroscience of music listening through radio actually turns out to be one of the largest informers of how Lately's AI works, which I can tell you about later. So don't forget to ask me about that because it's kind of cool. But I also, in between radio and a few other things before Lately, I had a marketing agency, and my first client was a little old company called Walmart. And
That's not a
I
bad
got
customer.
them, yeah, not bad. So I ended up getting Walmart 130% ROI year over year for 3 years with this exhaustive spreadsheet system that I created. Spreadsheets kill me now. But the idea was to look at consistency. So for the marketing nerds in the room, raise your hands. I'll just give you some detail. So it was Walmart and all their franchises, Bank of America and all of theirs, AT&T and all of theirs, the IRS, the National Disability Institute, and also United Way Worldwide. So it was for-profit, nonprofit, and government, small, medium, large. There were 20,000 marketers that we were actually wrangling together. It was a project designed to help lift the poor out of poverty through income tax credits and financial empowerment. So everybody wanted to be a part of this good thing, right? And when I came in from radio, so cowgirl, I don't really know a lot about corporate rules, and I don't really follow a lot of rules. I was a line cook before all this, so I'm into the lawlessness of things. And I was like, you guys are crazy. This is a giant mess, with I didn't have my edit button on either. And I went home and built a spreadsheet system, which first just organized everything. Like, okay, so if there's 40 people placing ads in newspapers across the country, what are the zip codes and what is the content that they're using? Or if there's 100 people writing a press release, well, like, let's get it all the same message, like this idea of consistency. And then I thought a lot about repurposing, because I was like, it seems like everybody's remaking the wheel constantly here every single day. There's got to be a better way. How can we unify our resources? But at the same time, and this is so important, is to customize each message on the local side, because you know this, Scott, and now I'm zigzagging all over the place, but humans are multifaceted. And so while consistency is important, you can no longer get to people with one message, right? That's actually outdated. It's dying, and the big dinosaurs aren't catching on really quite yet. Have a Coke and a smile, right? That was great for a long time, but now it's got to be, there's got to be some little tweak in there. And so we figured that out. And when I built Lately, I used these two ideas. Like, how can I repurpose content? So with Walmart, I had written a blog, and I thought, well, the title of this blog, which they're promoting, Walmart helps lift the poor out of poverty, nobody cares about, honestly, let's be honest. But each of the sentences inside were interesting because I wrote it, and they were like kind of teasers if they stood alone with a link back to the full length. So if I broke up all the sentences and turned them into social posts, I got 40 social posts in an hour, and I can disseminate these to everybody in the network and show them how to customize them. And now what if I did that with every piece of long form content we had? Video, audio, newsletters, white papers, right? It's all there in front of us. So those two ideas kind of got us here. That's part one of the story. Do you want to hear part two?
I do want to hear. No, so I was just going to, you don't have to give me a second to jump in.
Let me breathe. Let me breathe.
I forgot to, when we were prepping for this, I forgot to say, don't feel the need to punt it back over to me, because then I'm going to talk too much. So it's all about you. But no, this is a great story. And I just, first of all, congratulations on the success with Walmart, because that's incredible. And sometimes I just wanted to point out that something's very interesting about when you moved into this marketing, you moved into marketing from not marketing. Sometimes it's the people that don't know the rules that do the best when they move into something, when they can really disrupt the way things have been done. So that's something that's interesting. So not only did you do that in your actual job and your role and what you were delivering from Walmart, but this is something that I think that what has probably allowed you to create Lately, which is looking at marketing a different way. So how do we, and this is something that I see actually spoken about quite often, like how you have this content strategy that takes one piece and then starts to break it up and disseminate it and repurpose it, with even that repurposing it with the caveat that you still have to localize it, regionalize it, make it a little bit contextual to the audience that's going to see it. But still, like, it's like you don't have to do the heavy lifting every single time. So it's just a smart way to, and you were like way ahead of your time. Because now this is how I think now. But you were doing it like before there was tools and tech and people like, we'll talk about Gary Vaynerchuk too, that always speak about this is the strategy that you have to be a marketer that can keep up with social and the constant need for information and new content. Like, it's difficult. So anyways, that's my 2 cents. So back to you. What's part of your story?
It is, yeah. And I mean, one of the phrases that I say to my team and to myself all the time is, it's always right in front of you. Meaning, like, at this point in my life, and this is the confidence in the work you've done, wherever it is that I've probably already got pieces of this thing that I need to do right here somewhere. Whether it's, if I'm going to write a blog on consistency of marketing, I'm sure I've written 50 emails about that somewhere. Let me just go find them and pull them together. I don't really have to start from scratch, right? That's like kind of one idea. And then also, touching on what you were saying, I love metaphorically stealing good ideas that seem to have nothing to do with what you are interested in, and then twisting them and reapplying them. That comes back to music. Like, so I'm a sucker for covers, Scott. And there's some standards though. Like, a cover can't just be the straight ahead song. Why do it again if it's already great, right? You need to turn it inside out. So make it minor key instead of major. Slow it down instead of speed it up. Right? All those things. That's when you go, wow, I can't believe I just did that. Right? And I think what's that what is that phrase, like
About like
great
marketers
artist?
stealing or something like that. Like
Yeah,
all
yeah,
great.
yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. What is it?
I'm gonna look it
We're
up.
on the
I
same
can't
page.
remember.
Like great artists steal or
Yeah.
something. I don't
Or
know.
artists, yeah, yeah, artists steal. Yeah. I'll wait 1 second. I'm gonna
Anyways,
find
I
it.
believe. I'm
Okay,
pro
so it
stealing.
was Pablo Picasso. He said, "Good artists borrow, great artists steal." I don't know. It's
Thank
disputed
you.
as to whether or not he said it, but this is a great. The quote applies.
We should give it to Pablo. He
Yeah.
deserves it. Yeah. So, and then even if you don't, I mean, I was also, by the way, like, so this didn't just like happen out of nowhere. I was a fiction writing major. So rule breaking is something that I learned in a lyrical sense, right? Again, back to the music and all and the sounds. Like that's somewhere where my heart lives. And in fiction writing, you break rules as a matter of course, right? That's part of it. Certainly in poetry, for example. And then we touched on the kitchen as well. I mean, everything that Tony Bourdain ever wrote is 100% effing true. I lived that and I loved it. And what I loved was the chaos and like the serenity and the beauty that comes out of that chaos, getting everything up hot at once. Like being on the air. I was on the air live for most of my career, which nobody is anymore, in radio anyways. But like it's stressful, man. Like
I'm sure it's very stressful. You were talking about you were on Sirius XM, 20 million people. Like that's like a 10x multiplier on the amount of people that's going to listen to this. So, like,
I
good
would
for you.
never do that again, by the way. Like that, someone points that out to me regularly. They're like, "How can you be scared? You did this thing." And I was like, "I don't know what I was thinking."
I think you just probably don't even understand like the magnitude, like the scope of people that you're actually. I've spoken to people on radio before, and like they'll be like fresh out of college, and they'll be speaking to like hundreds of, well, not maybe hundreds of millions, but like millions of people, and like that's a lot of damn people. And I don't think you
It's
realize
a
it when you're
lot.
sitting there just talking. Like you really don't
No.
get the magnitude of like what you say carries. So it's
It's
scary.
true. And they teach you, like I had a good mentor actually who taught me to always, I used to draw a picture, talk to one person, imagine who the person is, and like that's who you're talking to.
Hmm.
And I mean, this is important to what we're going to be continuing to talk about here, but like the theater of the mind is so powerful because you have to allow for that unknown character to fill the blanks,
Hmm.
right? This works in radio and it works in or podcast and it works in writing too, an author, right? So let me jump back to what I had said before, and then I got to tell you part two. So when you listen to a new song, Scott, your brain must instantly access every other song you've ever heard in that moment, and it's looking for familiar touch points, so it knows where to index the new song in the library of the memory of your brain. Now, your voice has a musical note to it. It has a frequency, like a song. And when you write text and I read the text that you write, I hear your voice in my head. So it's your job as the author to give me, the reader, familiar touch points and trigger nostalgia, memory, emotion. These are all the base layers for trust,
Hmm.
right? And trust is why we buy.
I just want to take a second and thank the sponsor of today's episode, HubSpot. Now, running your own business means uncertainty is everywhere. So wouldn't it be nice to have a CRM platform that just works? A CRM platform that helps you provide a seamless, connected, best-in-class customer experience. For too long, businesses have had to deal with managing point solutions that slow down their teams, frustrate customers, and hit them with hidden fees. HubSpot's all-in-one CRM platform has everything you need to do business, no hidden fees included. With a connected platform that's easy to implement and use, your teams have all the tools and data they need to spend more time on what matters most, creating remarkable customer experiences. Learn how HubSpot can help your business grow better at HubSpot.com. So, knowing that, because I don't think many people are very cognizant of that when they create content.
Mm-hmm. I don't
So,
think they are either.
so
Anne Hanley is. Do you know her? She's amazing.
I do. Yeah, I
She,
do. I didn't know.
yeah,
I'm sure. I'm sure like the people that are like at that level probably are very like another one who I felt like Seth Godin. Like whenever he
yeah.
writes, I'm sure like he knows his style and you get that feeling too when you read his content. So I guess I want to hear part. Is that we're still going into part two, but I have
We
questions that
still
are
have to go to
coming out of
part
this
two.
exact point. So we can index these questions for later. It doesn't matter to me. But I think the
Yeah.
the first question would be, how do you do that well? Because that's a great tool for a marketer to have. Or how do you do that at all? And secondly, how does AI capture that? Because if you're going to use a tool like Lately for content marketing, ultimately at some point it has to be as impactful as if a human was creating it.
Right. So many good ideas there. So the first part is how do you do it how do humans do it? So there's an easy trick. You just read out loud what you write. I'll give you an example. This is a letter that I got in the mail. So I'm holding a piece of paper, and it's from West Elm, where I shop.
Mm-hmm.
This certificate is issued for reward purposes and is a duplicate of the certificate you received by email. You guys hear that? So hear me trip over that. This certificate is issued for reward purposes. Duplicate of the certificate. You can hear me say all the
Yeah,
things. Very hard to say.
yeah.
What they're trying to tell me is, hey, ding dong, we emailed you a copy of this coupon. You can't use both. That's what they're saying. So when you write copy and read it out loud, if you trip over it, you know you got to redo it. It's not authentic. You're communicating poorly because if you're tripping, I'm tripping, right?
Interesting. And even if I'm not reading it out loud, say I get that in my hand and I'm reading it and it feels awkward, you're saying that even if I'm just reading it on paper, there's a good chance that if I can't read it out loud as the author, then the person, the recipient, when they read that on paper, it's going to feel awkward. It's going to feel clunky in their head, even though they don't know why.
That's right. And when it feels awkward, the first thing you don't do is trust somebody. And like I said, trust is the main thing, right? And so then you get that spam feeling, or there's a pact that we make as salespeople and marketing people, and there's no shame in this. We're all selling something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants someone to do something. I want my husband to take out the trash. You want your children to do their homework on time. You want the person in line in front of you to hurry the F up
Mm-hmm.
and pay with a credit card instead of writing a check. Are you kidding me? Let's move it, right? So, so all these things. And so I'm thinking about, okay, well, if I want you to do X, what is the X I would want you to do? So let's talk about social media, for example. Like in social copy, there's only two outcomes: click or share.
Mm-hmm.
That's it, right? Now, clicks for smaller companies or for people who don't have a lot of trust, right? We don't have a lot of name recognition. Clicks are hard. There's one exception, which is when you create how-to content, it's a lot easier to get people to click because they're curious. It's already built in. Oh, how to? How do I do that thing? But the share is actually easy. And this is built on, we were talking about that third person in the room. So sharing is all about your ego. And me making you look good, me, the
Mm-hmm.
author, making you look good by sharing my content. When you share my content, you get credit for it, like an album in college.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody gave it to you, this new
You,
record.
you
Oh my
seem like
God.
you're with it. You seem like you're in the know. You seem like you have all the cool. You have access to the cool stuff, or like you're the person that knows what's good and what's coming up. So that's why the content has to be educational, entertaining, like something that makes you look good as the sharer.
There you go. Right. So if you know that those are your only two objectives, just keep it real small. Then you back into it. So if I'm writing copy, I go for the share because I can do that well. I can make people laugh. I wrote something recently that said, like, is your LinkedIn page a turd? Because mine is. Mine
Yeah.
is, you know? And I did it because I want you to react, right? So reacting is the first step into having a conversation and then making them do the thing, click, share, whatever it is. You got to make people lean forward. And then to tie into your second question was like, well, how do you do this with AI? Like, and I'll spell it out technically for everybody if you like, but the first thing to say is we don't separate humans from robots at Lately. We know that the human is an essential component of marketing and sales. So marketing and sales has been, social selling is not new. When the first person had the wheel, that was a social sale he made back in the day. It was a man, I have to say, but right. So nothing is different. It's just all the tools we use. Did I lose my own train of thought? No, I didn't. Okay, so with 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 marketing and sales, the human has that je ne sais quoi. Again, this is that third piece in the room we're talking about, right? You can't put a finger on it, but you have to allow the space there. And you can't always describe it. It's the thing. You and I just met today. We already discovered that we could talk for hours, and I totally want to have a beer with you, or a non-alcoholic beer, or whatever we're doing. It doesn't really matter.
I can do either. Or I'd rather have coffee than a non-alcoholic beer. I don't love the taste.
There's not that good, but they are getting better. I've been trying.
Really?
Some.
I haven't done a non-alcoholic beer in a while, actually. Actually, to be honest, I haven't done a beer in a while. I usually just go to like I've done too many White Claws. Like, it's like I'm super basic because I don't like hangovers. So like now I'm getting old. So like if I do like anything like actual liquor, like if I do like a scotch or a whiskey, it's like I'm done the next day. So it's like tequila or like White Claw. Like beer is like I'm all bloated. Like it's not like growing up's not fun.
We have the same problems.
Yeah.
Shout out to Lauren on the White Claw. She's my head of everything. The claw is the law, right?
Yeah, it's good. Anyways.
but yeah, and only you and I were able to do that. This is what I'm saying. Like I feel like we've already reached through the screen. We've hugged, we've high-fived, like all those things, right? And so you can't remove this element, and you don't want to, right? This is why AI will never replace marketers altogether, in my opinion. So what we do is Lately's robot's job is to get you 3/4 of the way there so that the human has the space to fill in that 1/4%. Now, the difference isn't 1 + 1 = 2. It's 1 + 1 = 3. And that's even more the reason you do it. So to back up and give people the commercial briefly, but Lately's AI learns your brand voice. It'll learn any brand voice, and then it'll atomize any long form content into dozens of previews or movie trailers.
Clips,
in the case of video.
little clips of that, if it's a video or just like short little text.
That's right.
Clips, yeah.
And so the magical part is the AI knows which clips to learn, or to use, to cut up and to present to you in a social post. And it's doing that because it's actually studying your analytics from your social channels, and it can see what words and phrases and sentence structures get you the highest engagement. And then it starts to look for that same content in whatever you feed it, right? So the human part, though, has to curate it. It's only a robot. It's a little dumb, and it doesn't even know you yet. It has to get to know you. So the more time you nudge it, the more time you spend telling it this way, it'll get smarter and smarter, which is great. And the job is to, as all robots, right? Robots are cold. Humans are warm. Robots are fast. Humans are slow. But together, this is that magical thing you get. So, the story, I guess, like that I wanted to touch on, because, we're talking about a lot of new ideas here. We're talking about, as you pointed out, like looking at things differently. So I want to zag back for 1 sec. When I was at XM, I had really bad tendonitis and epicondylitis, Scott, throughout both arms and hands. I couldn't type anymore, and it was scary. This is 2006.
You had tennis elbow.
Worse
Than
That's
tennis
right.
elbow, yeah.
Yeah. And there wasn't, like you said before, this is like a long time ago. I had a flip phone. And Dragon Naturally Speaking had been invented. That's the voice-activated software that powers Siri. But not a lot of people knew about it, and it was very clunky and hard to use. So I learned about it. I found there were 4 coaches in the whole country. One was in DC. I had no money. I was in radio. I ate ramen, and other people's. I had Charles Shaw, $3 check, right? And I found this woman who was a fan of my channel, and I paid her in CDs because I had hundreds of them. So I was really lucky. And then I took the software to XM. They wouldn't put it in the system, because of IT and whatever. So I got a credit card. I bought a laptop, which I couldn't afford, so I could at least bring it to work. And then now I'm a real pain in the ass because I need a private room because I have a microphone, and the microphone hears everything. So now I want special treatment, right? I'm actually a person with a partial disability, but I want special treatment. And it was sexual harassment, like galore, like all these things were happening, and hostile work environment.
This was not
and
a good spot, basically.
It was a shit show, but we didn't have the language I'm using to describe to you. And it was, to me, it was just frustrating. I was like, wait a second, I kind of kick ass here. Like my channel is like number 21 out of 300. You know, I'm doing a great job. Why am I not getting rewarded for this? And why is it so hard? And I was crying a lot and smoking a lot. I was very good at smoking. I miss smoking. And my dad kind of had it with me, and he very lovingly shook me by the shoulders one day and said, "You can't work for other people, and there's no shame in that."
Good advice. Very good advice.
Yeah. Light bulb.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's when I just want to share this other part, because for those of you who are, maybe inspired but haven't yet made the leap, or when there's lots of hurdles in your way, like the universe is trying to tell you, dude, move, you have to make the leap here. You have to move it. So in that moment, all in the same week, my husband he was my boyfriend then, he heard my dad, and in his great kindness and wisdom, went right out to the bookstore and got me Guy Kawasaki's Art of the Start. Seminal startup book, right? And so I started to read that, and I got into maybe chapter 2, where Guy says, don't make a plan, just get started, right? Meaning, like, don't waste time thinking about all the things you have to do. You're just going to roll with it. And I thought, okay, well, I don't need this book anymore. And I literally tossed it aside. I tried to go back to it, but I never really did, because those books are not a map. There is no map for what you're doing. There's only inspiration, and that's what it's designed to be. And then the other thing that happened, 2 other things. This is all 1 week. I was reading a self-help book, Scott, and I don't like self-help books. I don't. I find them just kill me now. But I was trying everything I could in my power, because I was unhappy and I knew I had to do something and change the channel. So I read The Secret, which is a total barf of a book. And The Secret, by the way, is not a secret at all. It's a mindset. That's what it is. And I could see that my mindset sucked. I smoked, so I'm like totally wishing death on myself, literally, by the moment. All I'm talking about is how much pain I'm in and how much I hate my job. And I thought, okay, well, I'm just not going to do that stuff anymore. I'm not going to have negative stuff come out. I'm going to stop smoking. I'm going to stop just being like this mess. And then I went to lunch with some customers who were big fans of mine from XM, and they wanted to hand deliver a product because they wanted to meet me, which was very unusual. I usually just put it in the mail. And we went to lunch, and it turns out they were angel investors, and they gave me $50,000 to start my first company.
And this all happened in 1 week, and this was not expected at all. This lunch is, and it was in that lunch that they were like, you want to start something, you have an idea, we'll help you out.
Yeah, I was
incredible, actually.
Remember, I told you I don't have an edit button, and I was talking about, there's this guy, Bob Lefsetz, who was a big deal in the music industry back in the day. He had a newsletter, which, guys, MySpace was just coming around, right? So, and he had authority because he had that voice. And Bob was always talking about my show at XM, but not giving me credit for it. And he told my boss specifically that she couldn't possibly be making those song choices because she's too young and, couldn't have that wherewithal. And that really pissed me off. And so I was complaining about him, and they knew who he was. And that's when they were just like, you're awesome. You're crazy. Let's take on Bob Lefsetz in the world. Sure, why not? Because I didn't have any. What could I lose? I was already incapacitated.
You weren't in a good spot. You couldn't really lose anything. Yeah. If anything, you just end up leaving a toxic work environment, and it forces you to find something else that's hopefully a little less shitty. That's the worst that can happen if the entrepreneur stuff doesn't work out.
Yeah, exactly. And I was lucky. Luck always has a role. I totally believe that. You have to have both. You have to know the door has to open. You have to know to go through. So it's both. But I was able to then, and I had help. I had catalysts to help me do this, to start pulling on my tool drawer of things. A fiction writing, line cook, radio. Okay, so I have these skills. Somebody actually, this is a great skill for all you guys listening. Someone asked me to run through my contacts and try to group them, and think of them in unusual ways, because I was raising money eventually, right? I started lately, so I had to do. We will get to that story too. but I was trying to think of who they were. So my first idea was, well, they're all music people. There's the artists and there's the record industry people, right? And then I started, and there's family, friends, whatever. Then I started looking at like differently, trying to cut across these groups in different ways. And so I had people I could see were entrepreneurs. I had people who I could tell were risk takers. Like I made these categories. It turns out I did have people who had a lot of money in my life, but I didn't really know that about them. But I'd called them risk takers, and those are the people I went to first to bet on me. And I raised on nothing, on an idea that I it was so poor back then, to be honest. It wasn't this at all. We raised $250,000 in a few months, not mostly from friends and family, actually, mostly from strangers. One of them actually was.
Go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, one of them, Bob McCausland, was one of my biggest fans at XM, and he's my largest investor. So like radio, who knew radio would pay off? That ridiculous career I had, you know?
I just want to take a second and thank the sponsor of today's episode, Manscaped. Now, Manscaped is the leader in below the belt grooming. And because you're listening today to SXSW, you're going to get 20% off plus free shipping with the code 20success at manscaped.com. But let me give you a little rundown of why Manscaped is so awesome and what you're going to be getting. So you're getting the Manscaped Performance Package 4.0. It has everything you need to prepare that summer body. In the package, you're going to have the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer. You're going to have the Crop Reviver toner. You're going to have the Crop Preserver, which is under the belt deodorant. You're going to have performance boxer briefs, and you're going to have a travel bag to hold all of it. Now, their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, that is the thing they're known for. It features a cutting-edge ceramic blade. This reduces grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. They have a 7,000 RPM motor, a new multifunction on-off switch. They can engage a travel lock. They have an LED light on that. You can take it anywhere because it's all waterproof. So beach, lake, shower, the razor goes anywhere. So if you want 20% off, that's 20% off plus free shipping on the performance package. You're going to go to manscaped.com, use the code 20success. Remember, that is 20% off plus free shipping, the performance package, all the stuff I just mentioned. Go to manscaped.com and use the code 20success. That's a whole other conversation about if you have a reach and an audience, you can do quite a bit with it, which that's a lesson in and of itself. But okay, so you raised 50K, then you raised up to 250K. Still on an idea. There's obviously pre-revenue. So how did you start? How did you're now the current iteration of Lately is AI. You're not developing this yourself. You're not an engineer. So what did you do? What did you do with that money?
Yeah. So the first money, the first 50K, we actually built, not Lately at all. We built miniature radio. It was 2 songs a day, an old song and a new song that chemically had to work together, sonically and chemically, and it was free. It was like a widget. And but it taps onto the ideas that we're having here: familiar touch points, right? It's all there. And that's when somebody came to me and said, "Hey, you're really good at marketing. Let's put you on the Walmart account." And I was like, "Great, goodbye, radio. I'm done with you for life." Finally. But then, as that was happening, and I was making all these spreadsheets, my spreadsheet system, my friend Steve, who was in this world, he was a former CTO. He'd had a successful exit. He knew all these words that I didn't know, and he kept saying to me, "Let's automate your spreadsheets. We just need $25,000 to build wireframes," And I'm like, okay, first of all, don't touch my spreadsheets. Second of all, $25,000. Like, have you met me? Like, I was about to be 40 at the time, and I was buying my first house, and we've scraped and saved to do this, And then I didn't know what a wireframe was, of course. And so Steve ended up pulling the money out of his own pocket, bringing in one of my co-founders. So Steve was the glue. He was the person that had the tech background. And the first go through, Scott, so me and Jason, the first co-founder that came in, Jason single-handedly built small business products for both Target and Bank of America. So he had that, obviously, cachet. And then our first CTO that we brought in, so Jason is my chief product designer. My first CTO we lost to alcoholic depression. The second one we lost to suicidal depression. Nobody died. I'm just saying they were evaporating from my life.
Yeah.
So the funds we raised were evaporating as well, and it was hard, you know. And it took, this was like 2 or 3 years at this point of being into it with nothing to show, and still this cockamamie idea about spreadsheets and organization and not AI at all. And finally we raised some money, and I got a good CTO, Brian, who's my CTO now, who's amazing. And we watched our customers and what they did. And the thing that we thought was valuable wasn't really valuable to them at all. What they liked was this crazy idea I had, which was, let's just take a blog, push a button, and turn it into 50 social posts. So we built, the spreadsheet had worksheets, and each worksheet was a feature of Lately, right? The platform had all these features. That was my process. And so our original idea was that my process could be replicated. Turns out that's not true. My process is too complicated to replicate. It's too hard to understand because I'm crazy, and you can already tell, I don't think linearly. I don't talk linearly. I'm all over the place. Right?
I know, but it's good. I can see that. So I can see, well, I can see, just when you were first speaking of it, I can see why this would be a successful process for marketing. But you're right. Like if you're going to try and turn this into like any sort of product or software product or SaaS product, it seems like there's a lot of points where it can break.
Yeah, you're right. And, as Joanne Wilson, my favorite investor, says to me, I can walk through walls. I mean, just hit me over the head a few more times. Like, yes, please give me another. Yeah. Right. So we kept piling on because we knew we had something. There was something there, and we were nimble enough to keep refocusing on the thing that was surfacing and double down on it and triple down on it. And so that's what we've been doing. And there's so many highs and lows. I mean, I like getting punched in the face, and obviously I love it, right? And
how do your investors like it? How do your investors?
That's one of my finest qualities. I mean, yeah. Right. I mean, there's a lot of things that I suck at, but like I'm competitive, and they know that I'm not going to quit. And this game is, especially if you're a woman, Scott, right? Or underdogs in general, but in my world, female entrepreneurs only get 2% of all the venture funding. 2%. Now I've raised $3.4 million, all from angels, not ventures. I've had one term sheet in my hand. I've failed to raise a price round twice. It feels like a huge shortcoming on my part. Why can't I achieve this one hurdle? And the answer is because it's fucking hard, and they raise the goalposts on you all the time, And I'm constantly looking for other kinds of validation and checking myself, like, am I crazy? Why am I still doing this? But I've got 348 customers that, wouldn't let me pry Lately from their cold dead hands. So it's like constantly thinking to yourself, am I stubborn or am I just driven?
But you still see progress. It's a fine line. You still see, even if it's incremental, like you're still moving in the right direction always, even though things aren't always working out. I think that's
and right now, speaking of the right direction, so the right direction traditionally for all startups is monthly recurring revenue. That's the direction. That's the ometer for all the things. And we were going. It took us a long time. We flatlined for a while, and we dropped and whatever, and then we were flying super high. And then something broke. And I cried a lot, and a lot of stuff actually broke all at once. And that was really difficult because, we can take a lot of punches as myself and my team. I have a very high tolerance for pain and stress, but this was all this stuff at once. And we had to just pick up our heads, and we're doing something crazy, which is we're saying now that MRR is not our true north. No, this is crazy, right? I'm going to say making money is not what I care about right now. What I care about right now is what is it? What is the one single thing that makes customers not churn? What is that thing? What do they have to do in my product to get enough whatever to love me till the day they die?
Yeah, I know what it is. And your goal right now is to figure that out, or you have figured that out?
I know what it is. Yeah,
you know what it is.
I already knew before, but what I didn't know, and this lots of things this year helped me understand exactly what you said is, can you make it a straight line? I figured out how to do that. But it means becoming what we are and stop trying to be the things we're not. And that's a big, I'm being a little bit cryptic because it's too long and boring to tell everybody. But
Slightly cryptic. I'm like wondering like how deep I want to like press on this, like figure out what the hell you're doing right now.
well, I mean,
But
I
I know
figured
it's
out
like,
that you can,
yeah.
you can sequence Lately, the AI. You can't sequence marketing. Marketing, everybody comes at it from different ways. And that's what we've been trying to do. This is why, well, no, we weren't trying to do it. We knew that. And so we didn't automate a million things. And we really relied on customer interaction and demos and like an enterprise mindset. And we knew all the reasons to not do that or to do that for the moment. But we had enough validation happening around, my gift, my Uber power is making listeners into fans or customers into evangelists. That's what I do. And how can I take that and using product-led growth, scale that, right? Because what I do now, we don't do and lean forward, everybody. So we don't do any paid ads and no cold calls and no cold emails at Lately. We only use our own organic AI for all lead generation. And we have a 98% sales conversion.
That's incredible. That is incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Now,
how do we scale that?
But the question is, so I was going to ask, how do you scale that?
Yeah.
But also, is that just because you wanted to figure out those key carrots that you have to dangle in front of customers to actually, those things that you have to have the customer do before you return to whatever 0% or whatever your metric you're trying to achieve? Do you want to figure that out first before you ramp up the more traditional air quotes type of marketing, or is that just not what you want to do as a company? You're happy with the 98% conversion rate with no ad spend?
Well, I mean, I've fucked up a million other things. Like that's the one shining good thing, But
no, I know. I'm just wondering where your head's at, what you're going to do with the company in the future when you figure those things, those levers out.
We have figured them out already, because remember what I was saying, it's always right in front of you, and it was right in front of us, and we knew it before. We have amassed a lot of data. I had got some great advice from an entrepreneur several years ago, which was to always look for the patterns, right? Because you're either going to double down on the patterns or like the patterns are going to show you what's wrong. And so I knew that, and I had collected all this data, and I could tell that I just wasn't looking at it right, but I didn't have the wisdom or the perspective. I needed someone else to come in and with their eyeballs or light something up. And so I spent time with Mark Roberge this summer. Mark is the former CRO that took HubSpot to IPO for those
from
listening.
Like he was like employee number like whatever, it's 6, 7 in a garage to. And he was like the demand gen. He's like the person like I like to follow and subscribe to for a content marketing strategy, because he's all about inbound. He's all about inbound. Yeah.
He lives and breathes it, and he's so nice. And it was he emailed me. He's also, do we have time for a quick story?
Yeah.
He's also a professor at Harvard Business School, and Harvard Business School Alumni Angels of New York actually led my first round. So I didn't go to Harvard, but like I got Harvard in my life, right? And he cold emailed me and said, "Hey, will Lately be a part of this thing for my class?" And I get these kinds of things all the time, and I have to really be judicious about where we spend that time or not, because it's not often worth it. And I was like, it sounds like a waste of time. Now, I wasn't paying attention, Scott, because I'm busy, and I often gloss over things. I do, because like there's so much coming at you, right? And this person was very persistent, and he was like, "Let's get on the phone." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
So you had Mark Roberge hitting you up again and again and again.
Yeah. And I don't know who it is. I'm not paying attention. I know who he is, but I'm not connecting the dots, right? So we're on a call, just like this, on a Zoom call. And he's talking, and I just keep thinking, damn, this guy really took some time to know about me. He's cool. He's smart. He's got good insights, because most people don't. They're just shining me or whatever. Advice is free, right? And I'm Googling him, and I'm like, oh, my God, it's Mark Roberge. So we did the project. It was actually a waste of time. But what wasn't a waste of time was that later that summer, Stage 2 Capital did their first, which is Mark's venture arm, did their first ever accelerator, and they reached out and asked Lately to participate. And I was like, oh, I'm going to spend 10 weeks being coached personally by Mark Roberge. Yes, I'm doing this.
That's not a waste of time. That is not a waste of time.
No. And he was in part the catalyst. Like he equipped us with people to come in and look at my numbers and help me sift through them in new ways. But also, I wanted validation, Scott, because am I crazy? Right? Here we are, like, oh my God, everything is upside down again. And I got it. In so many ways that, like, I've done a lot of accelerators as well, and I've worked with a lot of people, but I'd never had so many people from his cherry pick from his team who actually helped me. They didn't just give me some advice that I could maybe execute on or noodle on or whatever. And in my world, that's so valuable because I'm only one human, and there's never enough people to actually physically do all the things. So anytime I can get somebody in, to do it, I don't need advice. I've got advice coming out of my ass. I need executors, right? And now it's time to take what I learned and put it to the test. And hey, see, well, as always, like, will it stick to the wall? We'll find out.
We'll see.
Stay tuned.
So, okay, so then we'll have to do a follow up because I really want to know what you're changing. I like, even before we jump in this call, like you said, like you're going to shake things up, you're going to, rip stuff out. And so obviously you're like in a high transition period right now. Like, so I'm curious what it's going to look like. So anyways, you have some great advice coming in from some great people, obviously. So I think it's going to be a net positive. I can't imagine it going the wrong way. Mark Roberge is just really impressive. So like if he's the one who helped be the catalyst for all this, I think it's probably going to end up working out quite well. Anyways,
I hope so.
I'm curious.
Yeah.
Because I've also, even like before we actually started talking, I was trying to figure out, like, this seems like such a great product for like a consumer, or like, for a smaller content creator. And I'm like, well, this is priced out of my range at the beginning when I first started looking into it. So I'm like, how do we, how can I use something like this? Because I'm not Gary Vaynerchuk and I don't have a huge marketing budget, but this is like, AI is like the dream for a smaller content creator, because that's, again, you just mentioned how every time you can bring somebody in to help you, like that's, well, in my world, like tools and tech and AI is what allows me to replicate myself without hiring somebody full time. So how do I figure out how to get this into my world? And maybe that's, hopefully you're going down that road in the future. We'll see.
Yeah.
But,
I feel like I'm democratizing my own company. Like,
But that's not a bad thing, though. That's not really a bad thing.
No. It's the thing we were built to do. Like, this is the best part. And we should wrap it up. I know, and I'm being so cryptic, and it's mean of me. So
it just means you're planting seeds for something in like 6 months. So it's okay.
The best part is I'm happy. Somebody said to me, and listeners, like, this is so important, and it sounds so fluffy and cliche, but one of my investors and friends, Peter, said, "Are you happy?" And the answer was no. Mm-hmm. And I don't operate in a world that I'm not happy, because I've learned the hard way that it manifests physically for me and incapacitates me. And I was like, oh my God. And he asked, what makes you happy with work? And I told him the things that I'm best at doing, I wasn't actually doing anymore or at all. And so we restructured even internally the company, who got paid, who was going to work here anymore. Mm-hmm. Sales versus engineering was the decision we made. We made it engineering. We made it product. The product needs to shine. The product is everything,
I just want to take a second and thank the sponsor of today's episode, NordVPN. Now, if you've ever missed out on your favorite shows because it's not available in your country, or if you're trying to keep your private time private, you don't want people spying on what you're doing, well, let me introduce you to NordVPN. If you're bored of US Netflix, why not take a spin in the UK? Use NordVPN. Click of a button, you can do just that. You want to watch your favorite anime? You don't have to travel to Japan. NordVPN brings it right to you with 5,000 plus server options. No show is out of reach. And of course, we all love to binge TV and Netflix, but privacy is a big deal too. NordVPN keeps your information encrypted, so you never have to worry about your IP or location getting out. They've also doubled down on keeping you safe with their new threat protection feature. Say goodbye to intrusive web ads and malware. Even if you download an infected file, threat protection kicks in and deletes it before it makes a mess of your computer. Don't forget, if you're trying NordVPN, there is literally no risk to you. They have a 30-day money-back guarantee. Give it a try. If you like it, great. If you don't, they'll issue you a refund. You can pretend it never happened. They gave a special discount for Success Story podcast listeners. They gave a special offer. So go to my link at nordvpn.com/successstory to get your subscription started today. Do you want to talk about I need to talk about Gary Vaynerchuk. I just need to talk
Oh,
about
sure.
Gary Vaynerchuk
Yeah, we
because
can
I
talk
know
about Gary.
we have to talk. Okay, so first, okay, so let's sort of like segue into this. So the
Okay.
goal of the goal in my mind of lately is to help anybody turn themselves into a media company. Anybody have a replicable, scalable content strategy. At its core, that's what I think its most useful utility is. And then, of course, it's you said like it takes you three-quarters of the way, and then, of course, if you're a marketer, you can finesse it and you can massage it, and then you can tailor it to the audience. So that's the goal, right? Like you have this one piece of content that you can turn into a whole bunch of clips, and then it does it smartly and intelligently and with your brand in mind, and then you can disseminate it to any social platform, whatever. So this is obviously something that I learned this strategy before I knew about the tool from Gary Vaynerchuk. This is how I grew my show, my podcast, through this strategy, right? Like you record the long
Right.
form, and then you break it up into clips, and you break it up into a blog, and you have like the 5-minute clips for Facebook, and you have the 2-minute clip for Instagram, and you have like a 30-second clip for Reels or TikTok or YouTube Shorts or Snapchat Spotlight. So you have all these different clips, and they go anywhere. So anyways, this is what I learned from Gary Vaynerchuk, but then I realized he was actually using your tool. So walk me through that. He was already part of the content game for a long time, and I'm sure that he was trying to create content at scale. I don't think there was a tool he was using. Maybe it was just a team of marketers, but then I know that he actually uses Lately now. So I'm assuming that obviously was like a holy grail for him and how he markets, right? I don't know the whole story, so I'm just
Well,
connecting dots
yeah,
here.
I mean, we did a test with them because lately isn't really made for Gary because Gary doesn't need me. He's got an army,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he's not my ideal customer, amazingly enough. He's my ideal poster boy.
Mm-hmm.
And like the goal wasn't ever to make him a customer because we just knew like it, it it's hard to replace mindset, you know. We found this when we talk to enterprise customers, especially or like large agencies, is they get really nervous because they're like, well, we're already doing this by hand.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, but we could save you time. And anyway, so it was interesting learning from Gary's team, around that. But to your point, we asked Gary to talk about us on social twice, LinkedIn and Twitter. We got a ton of inbound. And each time we weren't able to convert the inbound at a large scale. And like, we didn't know why, but we were starting to figure it out on top of all the other things we were learning, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like the new product that we are releasing is actually designed for you and everybody else who wants to do exactly what you're saying, and so that the AI will get them 90% of the way there instead of only three-quarters of the way, and to be at that consumer kind of price range and all the things. With Gary, what happened was okay. So I'll tell this last story, and then I got to go because I'm having so much fun with you, and I realize and I have a thing shortly.
I'm just trying to let you. So I know we booked it. We were supposed to be done like what, but I was like, whatever. Like these
I
are great
know.
stories, and we'll wrap it up quick. But like, anyway, sorry, I didn't want to drag it out too long. But it's all
No,
really
you're
good stuff.
great.
It's all really good stuff,
It's
and I appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Like you're a very self-aware entrepreneur, and I think that like your story uh, is inspirational to say the least. And I just appreciate like how real you are with how you've done things and how you're building things, and it's nice. It's a nice story. So I didn't want to cut it
Thanks.
short.
Well, no, no. I mean, to be really clear, I can't do this by myself. I rely on you. I
Mm,
rely on my customers, right? And like, what's life after lately? I don't know, but like, as much as I know that part of my journey is to like try to help other people along the
mhm.
way, right? And so by sharing the stories, that's the way I can do it with the time I have,
Yeah.
right? I can't give people personal consultations or advice or marketing, whatever, but I can share these stories. So with Gary, like again, we talked about opening the door and then having also the wherewithal to go through.
Mhm.
Um, he does 4Ds, right? That course he does where you
Yeah.
can go with like 7 or 10 other people. You hang out at VaynerMedia all day. We lived underneath Vayner in a accelerator for a year, so I knew where I know the building really well. And anyways, I got an invite to 4D. So I was like, great, I will do this. I don't really care about having marketing advice from Gary or anybody else all day. I just want to close this sale. I knew that I needed to get the sale to get noticed by Gary, and he doesn't know who we are. And so we closed a trial with Jim Thompson, who was running Team Gary V Marketing. And it happened to be that Jim was on vacation this week when 4Ds was happening, which is a bummer. But I figured, all right, I'll meet everybody else. So I went around, so I was constantly leaving the room. I didn't give a fuck. They're giving me advice on Facebook, and Gary only comes in for 1 hour. It's his whole staff is in for the day giving you great advice. But I don't need that advice. I'm not the best thing since sliced bread, but 98% sales conversion, I'm pretty good. So, at some point, Gary does come in, and he's so awesome. He treats every single person like a superstar, and he talks to you individually, and he focuses on you, even though there's a room full of people, which is an incredible thing for anyone to do. I would be impatient personally. I'd be like, oh my God, why are you asking me this ridiculous stuff? But he doesn't. He's 100%. And he gets to me, and I tell him what I do. I've actually met him before, but he did remember when I pointed it out, which is funny. But anyway, so he was like, wow, marketing automation, we would never use that here. I'll get back to you. He's kind of short with me. And I was like, oh, okay. And so then he comes around the room, and we're supposed to have all these questions for him. And I don't have any questions. I'm scrambling to come up with some questions in my little notebook. I'm like, oh. And so he gets back to me, and he's like, wait a second. Are we... he said, yeah, something again about not using AI. And I said, well, actually, you guys are using Lately right now. And he was like, what? And to his great credit, he said to the cameraman or Nick or whoever it was, he's like, who's using Lately? Get them in here. And so he brings in Ragan, who's like, are you using Lately? Yeah, we love it. Here's what it does, and it was this great moment where, and they videotape this whole thing and they put it out as content, right? Because that's what Gary's about. And so there's an hour-long show. He spends 18 minutes with me, which is a long time. Yeah. And then he chooses to put this out. So, he kind of was caught by surprise, which I think is, that's integrity coming out your eyeballs, right? So awesome. That is nice.
Yeah, you're not going to get a much better recommendation than that for somebody who's, that's
yeah. And then we thought they were about to churn, and then we released the video clipping feature, and we saved the sale for a couple years. And then actually they recently churned, which is no surprise. We knew it. I mean, they're not using it, right? Yeah. And my relationship with Gary isn't for him to become a customer. It's for him to help me market it to all of his followers. And he's the best. Who are the
actual ideal customer profiles? The people that don't have a team of 100 marketers. That's who want to use it, or who you need to use it. That's who needs to use it.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's just the nicest human. He always, I try not to bother him very often, but I do have his phone number, and I do once in a while text him, and he always responds.
It's nice.
And yeah, I mean, I feel like, what I hate? I hate always asking, and I want to give, and I don't know what to give him because he doesn't need anything from me. Do you know what I mean? So listeners, if you have any ideas, let me know. It's so much better to come bearing a gift and then to ask later, right? Yeah. So I hate feeling the needy team is needy. I don't want to be the needy team.
Okay, let's wrap this up. Not because I want to wrap it up, but because we have to wrap it up.
We have to have life. We have to have life.
Okay, so I needed to do a couple quick rapid fire, but you can go really, really quick. I just need them for the end of the show. But before I sure. Pivot into these, where can people reach out to you, find you? Where do you want to communicate? Social media, website, all that stuff.
I'm friendly. You can get me on Twitter at Lately.ai Kately. Okay. So Kately, my team calls me Kately from Lately. Lately is www.lately.ai. And tell me where you are and how the weather is, because those are the great questions that everybody can relate to.
Good. Very good. All right. Quick rapid fire. Biggest challenge you've had in your personal life. What was it? How'd you overcome it? Personal or professional, excuse me.
My hands, not being able to use my hands to type is terrifying and scary. And I use voice activated software every day. This is why the reason I have this headset is because I talk all damn day long, right? So I cheat. I can hear myself. I have resting bitch face in writing. I do. I can hear it. So when I was talking about reading it out loud, it's because I live that. I know I got to put a lot of smiley faces in there.
Amazing. If you had to choose one person, there's obviously been many who have been incredibly impactful in your life. Who was it, and how did they help you? What did they teach you?
My husband, David, teaches me all the time that I'm worth putting up with.
You're not that bad.
Because I'm not very nice. I mean,
All right. Your favorite source to learn or grow: book, podcast, Audible, anything you'd recommend people go check out.
I reread the Harry Potter series every year.
I love that.
It's my go-to because I know how the story ends and I like an underdog to win and I believe in magic.
Amazing. If you could tell your 20-year-old self one thing, what would it be?
Spend money on eye cream sooner.
That's a good one. And then last question, what does success mean to you?
Oh God. Honestly, it does mean money.
Yeah.
And I'm not ashamed to say that. And I'm fuck load of it. I want to roll in that stuff, man.